Today on the episode, I'm joined by Courtney, a woman whose story weaves together the worlds of human design, chronic illness, faith, and deeper inner healing. What started as a journey of self discovery through tools like astrology and human design eventually led her down a path of total burnout, mold illness, and a wake up call that forced her to look inward. Courtney, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so
Can you,
honored.
can you take us back to when you first discovered human design and astrology?
2017 was when I started, and my parents had actually just moved into my house because our whole house flooded and they had a pipe burst. And so they had my parents and my brother move into our room. And so, yeah, I was like, what can I do, tinker away with and learn while I have my whole family here living in my house? Like I can just like nick off and just be studying something interesting. And like I've always really been obsessed with like psychology and all of those types of things. Like I think at that point I was really considering going to university to study psychology, and I got really distracted in astrology, and I didn't know what astrology was at that time. Like I thought that astrology was just like, the zodiac signs, like what most people think it is until you start researching it. And then, yeah, I started with a course by Danielle Page, and I got so deep into it. Like studying astrology is just like it takes over your life. Like you first start with like the zodiacs and what they mean, and then the planets, what they mean, and then the transits and how it's all just like a big language that you have to interpret, and it constantly shifts, and yeah, it's always meaning different things. And so from there, I just was like constantly learning. Like you honestly cannot learn enough with astrology. It's not a simple thing. It takes a lifetime to like understand properly. And so from there, I think it was maybe like a year or so after, I think human design started becoming a thing. And I just love any system, like any kind of system that can tell you about yourself in some way. I find just so fascinating. So of course I moved into human design and got really fascinated with that, fell in love with that as well. And all my friends at the time were just like, give us readings. Like we would all catch up and have girls' nights, and I would do astrology readings and human design readings. And, I got a lot of validation from that. Like I felt such a sense of like belonging and with my girl gang. And like I felt belonging before that, but it was like, oh, I have a thing now. Like cool, we can nosedive this and I can update them with what's going on and what they should be, what, area of thing they should be exploring. And yeah, it felt super validating having people ask my opinion. So that was really filling something for me at the time where like, yeah, just I was always such like I grew up as like as such a good little girl, like quiet, be like just sit there, be quiet, kind of be spoken to. So I grew up with that kind of mentality. Like mum was a mobile hairdresser, and so would be going to clients' houses, and she was like, you sit there and be a good girl, and we won't be too long. And so I was just always very well behaved. And my brother was struggled a lot with mental illness. He's schizophrenic and autistic, and he's always had a lot of issues. So because of that, it was really important that I really behaved because mum already had her arms super full dealing with him. And so I think because of that, I just got through life always being the good girl and not really, and just kind of blending into the walls and kind of being a wallflower, which there's some good things about that, but then it's also like I've really shut down my voice. And so astrology just really helped me to find myself and find who these traits were outside of all of that. And I just felt so validated, honestly. Moving forward with it, I started realizing how in astrology there's like octaves. So you've got like with Pluto, for example, there's a higher and lower octave. You've got the death and rebirth. So it can be very destructive, but it can also be really beautiful and what is on the other side. And I just found that kind of psychology with each planetary alignment so interesting. How it's like you got to find balance with each one, and how they're showing up in your chart, and like also where they are natally in your chart. I found it really interesting, people's different personality traits and what could be good or what could be bad, or like maybe more challenging, let's say. So yeah, that's kind of what I loved about all of it, just the psychology. And then I didn't need to go to uni because I was just learning it all in such a different, unique way, which I kind of I'm quite a quirky person like that, that I love really unique things and not going by like the typical, I don't know, approach to things. So yeah.
That's amazing. So, for those who aren't aware of what human design is, are you able just to give a brief understanding for people to? Because I only learned about it from you when we were down at Wild, down with at Jake and Hannah's. Can you just give our listeners a little run through of what human design is?
Yes, of course. So human design is the study of five systems. So let me see if I can remember this still. It's the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, astrology, quantum physics, and what am I missing? Did I say the Chinese I Ching?
You did.
Yes, quantum physics, astrology, the Kabbalah. There's one more. Can't remember, but I'll come back to that one. So that anyway, there's five systems, and what I loved about human design is it brought all of these things together that I'd kind of dabbled in bits and bobs of them. And it just seemed like the one system that kind of will create something for you to live by. And so you've got in human design, you've got the five energy types. So you've got manifestors who like are the kings and queens of the world. I'm just going to use an example, whether we like him or not, Trump. So Trump is like a king, let's say, or I guess he likes to he probably would refer to himself in that light. And then under that, you've got the generators, which are maybe more like the Beyoncés of the world. And they are like here as like busy bees, like lots of energy here to light up the world. And then there's another energy type called the manifesting generator, which are a hybrid of those two types. And so they are like a king or queen in their eyes, but then they've also got the energy to back that up. So that's how they became a hybrid. And then the other type is a projector, which is the energy type of like the guides of our world. So they're the people that can oversee all of the pathways for maybe the manifestors and the generators, and they can help guide people to see what they should be doing because they have like an overarching view of things. And then the last type is the reflectors, who in our current world we live quite a confusing world for them. Like they're like the Michael Jacksons of the world. Like we are all confused on like who Michael Jackson was in the world. Like some people think he was a pedophile. Others would say, no way, he was not. And then people think that he was all about freedom and wanting that for our world. And it's like, who is he? It's very confusing. So reflectors have such a superpower where they reflect back to the world or the person or the community how they're showing up and what's going on for them. And so if you know there's only 1% of them in the world, so if you happen to find one, then they will reflect back to you who you are and how you're showing up. So they're a great person to have in your life for that reason, but we also need to protect them because it gets really confusing for them on their journey. Yeah, so that's a bit of an overview. And then when each person knows their energy type, then there's like a system or like there's kind of like a guide of like workings of how they should show up in their life.
So, you briefly mentioned you're not working or offering human design. So, what are you doing now, and what led you to stepping away from that?
So it's been really, really interesting journey and so deeply personal. So where I am in my journey with spirituality has been like this evolving thing. And I realized with these systems that was such a big part of who I was and my identity. I realized that I was actually like giving my power away to them and also my identity. I was starting to lean into the fear side of these modalities because of what was going on with my health, which I was super unaware of. I was unaware that I was being affected by mold in my house that was making me chronically sick. I had so many different illnesses showing up. One of the major things that was going on for me was my nervous system being just completely shot. And I was I was spiraling deeper and deeper into needing to control everything out of fear. Like I wouldn't even let my husband walk the dogs without me because I was so fearful of like, what if something happened? What if they got off the lead and I wasn't there in order to help? And so how this was showing up with me spiritually and with these systems is I was using them to protect myself. So like I would look at the upcoming transits and I would find the worst case scenario. And then I would like go about my days trying to avoid whatever I'd seen in a transit or something like that. And maybe I'll give you a bit of a backstory here. So, when it became super evident that I needed to let go of these systems was when I became my most sickest. So, in May 2023, I said to Adam, my husband, "Oh, in October, something scary is going to happen in for me, like based on what I'm looking at in my chart on the eclipse in October, 14th of October. I'm seeing something around my body being stuck. Like this particular transit was showing me my body's going to be stuck, or there's something happening to my body, some kind of crisis." And at the time, I said to Adam, I was like, maybe I'm going to end up paralyzed or something, because that's how I was interpreting this particular transit. It was very confusing. And so he was like, don't be silly. You read into things in the past and, they weren't what you thought. So let's just bench it for the moment. And so at the time, Adam, my husband, is a celebrant. So we were going over to Japan for this couple who had paid for us to go over and for Adam to marry them. We went over to Japan, did the wedding, and then during this time was when this particular eclipse was in October. So I was like, okay, I'm not going skiing. I'm not walking down anything that I could fall. Like I was just like so aware, right? And yeah, nothing happened. Like everything was fine. We stayed indoors for the eclipse. Like when there's an eclipse that you can visually see where if it happens in your time zone, you should stay indoors according to astrology. And so we did all those types of things for, just to be spiritually like good, I guess. And then nothing happened. And then the next day we got on our flight, came home. And when I woke up when we finally woke up in our bed at home, I couldn't move and I couldn't really even see. Like I could see a little bit. And I felt like I was super high on something. Like I felt out of my mind. It was the most bizarre feeling. And I couldn't feel my body. Like I couldn't connect my brain to my body to get things to move. And it wasn't like, I know people talk about what's it called, sleep paralysis. It wasn't like that because I was stuck all day. It went on all day. And then maybe like, I think it was like 4 or 5 hours and I would start coming back online. Like it was like really slow. I could start feeling things again. And so, yeah, I remember just being in such a panic, like just so disassociated, not knowing what to do. So we were already aware that we had a mold problem in the house. Like I'd been sick for quite a few years, really weird, mysterious things going on. And so someone said, "Oh, you should check your house for mold because some of the symptoms that you have sound like connected to what mold can do to the nervous system." Like I had crawling skin and just, so many different things. And so we had the house checked for mold with an inspector, and he found it in our ductwork and also in the pipe underneath the house. And while we were away in Japan for that week, we had the house fogged, which is one way of killing mold, which I don't recommend. It's quite dangerous because when you kill mold, it becomes more dangerous because the particles become smaller and they can get deeper into your system. What I've learned now is you should never try and kill mold. You should try and remove mold. And so that's what probably created the poisoning in my body and why I was stuck. When we realized, okay, we can't stay in the house and I was in this situation with my body, we started going outside more. And I realized when I was outside, I had more function in my body. Like it felt like this high feeling or this drunk feeling, this poisoning, it felt less. And I felt like I had more mental clarity. So we decided that we would move to the backyard. And so, because we didn't have anywhere to go at the time. So we built a tent in the backyard and we were like, we'll just use the house for like things like showering, using the kitchen and just avoiding the house as much as possible. And so, we lived in the backyard for 3 months to a point where it just became too much with the heat increasing being the summer months. And so we then had to move home to my mum's house at that point, and we lived in the lounge room for a year, which is very, very interesting to look back on now. And just what an experience. But bringing it back to human design and astrology, I went to go see a particular healer in Perth who a lot of people really like. He's quite renowned for what he does. He does bioresonance. And so this friend that told me to go see him was like, I know you're going to think that, what did he say? He said to me, I know you're going to think that I've drunk the Kool-Aid. And like this particular friend is not spiritual at all. Like, he's super practical. And so he was like, "You're going to think that I've drunk the Kool-Aid and I've sent you to the wackiest place, but just trust me, this guy's amazing." Like, he literally like tells people, like diagnoses people with what's going on with them. So I had really high hopes, and I went to him and had this session, and we were going through all these like I was having to hold what's it called, homeopathic medicines to like the chakra systems in my body, and none of them were landing. Like, it was like not mold illness, that's not what's wrong with you. Anyway, and then we went through this first batch of medicines that he said were the body medicines, because we were checking to find out what was wrong with my body. And he was like, "No, nothing's wrong with your body." And I was like, "What? Like, something's wrong. Like, I can barely walk. Some days I'm like paralyzed." And yeah, so then he got out the medicines that were connected to the mind, and he was going through them. And then one of them, the machine, I don't know how it works, like something happened, and he was like, "Ah, yes, this is psychosymptomatic. What's wrong with you?" And I was so offended. I was like, "Psychosymptomatic? Like, I'm not making this up. I'm so sick." And so then the next batch he did was he got out the ones for the spirit, and he put those ones back and got the spirit medicines out, and then he was going through them, and then bang, one of them pinged, and he was like, "Black magic, what have you been into?" And I was like, "What?" And I was just so spooked. And so I was like, "Oh, like, I'm an astrologer, and yeah, like, I've done plant medicine journeys and all the things that we all do." And he was like, "Oh, okay, we need to have a conversation around this." Yeah, how did I get to this point with astrology and human design? It's that I had to let go of these things because I was using fear. And if we try and be practical about that, it's like, yeah, he did quite scare me in this appointment, thinking like, I'm under spiritual attack. Like, what does that mean? Is that like demonic, like that kind of version of spirituality? But I had to try and wind it back out of that and be more practical and think, okay, on a mindset level, I've been using fear to use astrology, and what's behind that is the mold, which has been like distorting my nervous system and wearing me down. So, of course, I've gone into this fear state where I'm using these spiritual tools in this way. And so, yeah, I had to really create some boundaries around it and let go of something that was just taking me deeper into darkness.
How can we tie this into your breast implants?
Okay, so next from that journey, I began just connecting to prayer, like out loud, crazy prayers, and just asking God. Like, I don't, at that point, I didn't know anything about like the Christian religion. Like, I was like, I'm just going to talk to God because I don't know what else to do with my life right now. I was like on the border of dying, it felt like. So I would just like in the car cry and just ask God to help me, guide me, like bring me what I need to know. And like at this point, like I was spending thousands a month on healing. Like, we remediated our house from the mold issue, and then I was too scared to go home. So we rented it out. And then we used that rent money to just keep trying to save me with things. And so I found someone sent me a podcast, or I can't remember how this came on my path, but back in 2013, I had breast implants, the worst ones you could possibly have. They were called the PIP manufacturer, where they were actually made with mattress grade silicone. So not even medical, they were industrial grade silicone, and they ruptured through my body. And so I had them removed and replaced in 2014. But yeah, what did they do? They did a replacement and said that they cleaned up the mess, but like I was too young and we didn't know enough about breast implant illness then to understand like what's really involved in that process. And so after a year of having them back in, I was just too anxious about even having breast implants that I just made the decision in 2014 to have them completely removed, and then just assumed that I was living like naturally. So anyway, back to the chronic illness part. In 2024, it was praying, saying, what else is there? How else can I heal? What else can I be doing? And at this point, I was having like daily oxygen chamber appointments, red light therapy. What else was I doing? Daily enemas, daily saunas. Like my life was full-time healing. I was just on it, and I was like trying to just save myself and just get out all of this toxic crap and mycotoxins from the mold and whatever else. And so it just like came into my intuition that there's more to this breast implant stuff that I need to be researching. And so somehow, like I say, God just like kind of like creates a pathway for you. The podcast came onto my path from someone interviewing this particular doctor. Her name's Dr. Eva Nagy, about breast implant illness and how a lot of the surgeries when people are having explants aren't done properly, and the surgeons are just like they're supposed to go in and do a full capsule. What's it called? Capsulectomy. I can't say it. Anyway, it's when you remove like the skin surrounding the implant so that everything is taken like as a whole. Or the other word that they call it is like en bloc surgery, when they're actually cutting out the capsule with the implant. And so in my case, that wasn't done in 2014 because we just didn't know that. Whether the surgeons at the time knew that or not, I'm not sure. Like it does seem that there was kind of some dodginess going on in the breast implant industry. So yeah, I made the decision to go over to Sydney to Dr. Eva Nagy and have this surgery with her, and then see how my body would heal, getting the rest of this silicon in my body out. And so I do have the one thing we haven't been able to do anything about is the silicon that's trapped in my lymph nodes. And that is just going to be an ongoing risk and something I'm always going to have to stay on top of and, yeah, try to find ways to systemically detox. Or, yeah, it's a bit hard to budge silicon out of your lymph nodes.
This doctor identified that when she did the operation to remove the rest of the silicon out of your body. Did she identify there's still some in your lymph nodes?
So I had to have an MRI in order to even have surgery with her. And that's where it was picked up that there's quite a lot of silicon in my lymph nodes. And so through that journey, I had to face risks of having lymphedema where all my limbs could swell up. Yeah, it's still like a risk, like at any point that could happen. But with like lymphatic practices, I try and stay on top of these types of things. But yeah, in terms of the silicon, no one knows enough about what it does. My surgeon believes that once it's out of the tissue, and it is in the lymph system, that there's more evidence that it's a safer place for it. Like it kind of
Body takes it there, and that's a better
yeah, the
place.
body takes it there and it kind of like is less reactive. Whereas when it's in the tissue, it can, yeah, mess with the cells.
So going back to the implants, did they rupture and leak and one of your breasts go flat?
It didn't go flat. It was like a bubbly, it was like most people don't even know that they have ruptures. And this is why it's such a huge thing. And I'm honestly so passionate about it because, yeah, people just don't even know that they have a rupture. It's quite scary. So yeah, and it's like the silicon will stay there, but it'll slowly migrate out of the capsule and into the tissue. And there's only so much they can even get out of the tissue. Like I do still have a little bit of silicon trapped in the tissue, but it's the capsule that is the most toxic part because the capsule holds you've got the capsule is just your tissue that forms around the implant. And when they replace them, say you have a replacement surgery for whatever reason and you put new implants in, when the surgeon cuts into that capsule, all the bacteria that's surrounding it, that your body has like capsulated to keep you safe from, that bacteria then moves through the body systemically, which is why breast implant illness women, that's why we get sick, because of all of that bacteria or whatever is in that capsule that's just like been spread through us systemically. And that's why an en bloc surgery is so important, that the surgeon cuts around the capsule and takes it out as a whole so it's not been cut into.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
And so
anybody.
that education piece is what's missing. And a lot more women are starting to understand that now. And when they're going to get their explants, they're saying, can you please do a full I can't say this word, capsulectomy. Let's just run with that. Or an en bloc surgery. And you really need to be seeking out like a microplastic surgeon, because the surgeons these days, they just agree to it and they don't care because they're not sick. And yeah, it's a whole thing.
Oh my goodness. This is wild. So Because I remember when you went to Sydney to do that. So does this surgeon that you went to Sydney to see, does she do implants or does she just strictly do like takes them out?
I'm not sure where she is at with her journey. She's an oncologist, so I think she does still do implants, but like if it's not necessarily the implants that are the issue. It's most people are getting sick when there's a rupture and they're needing them to be replaced because of the capsule being cut into in that way and the bacteria or whatever. Some women, yes, they do get sick from the implants, like maybe their system really responds to them. And, like when I got my belly button pierced when I was 16, my body rejected it. Like even my ears here, my body rejects them. And so it's the same with the implants where it's, I'm not sure how this is connected, but we have mast cells in our body, which are a white blood cell, which are the most protective. And so I now have a condition called mast cell activation syndrome, where my mast cells are so overly activated from having these toxins in my body. Also comes from mold illness. So the two things are very similar. Like most people that have breast implant illness also have mold illness to some degree because the body immune system is just so weak that it can't fight against mold if it's in the house. So yeah, she's like she deals with a lot of these breast implant illness community, and she knows the most about mast cell activation syndrome, which is a term that a lot of doctors and GPs aren't willing to look at because it's only been around since 2011. So yeah, it's a bit tricky.
They're not willing to look at so many things. But like I had
Yeah.
someone on the podcast the other day, and he even said because he's an holistic gut coach, and who stays up to date with all the research, and he's like, doctors are learning when they go to uni, they're learning from a research that's 15 years old because there's no way that they can keep up to date and then reshare that information and teach a batch amount of doctors. Yeah, of course they don't know. Like you have to really take up. Yeah. Yeah, I feel sorry for people because everyone's trying their best to be healthy, but we're, I guess, trusting the media and trusting doctors is just not the way forward, is it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like they just go and do that medical degree. And then it's like every time I go and see a GP, I have to take them all the evidence around mast cell activation. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm not specialized in it, but no one is. And so, yeah, it's so tricky. Like, I'm so grateful for my surgeon, Dr. Ibanagi, because even now she still works with me. Even like a year after surgery, we're still trialing different medications like low dose naltrexone, which has been such a huge like thing. And before I was so holistic, like I was so crazy doing all my healing routine every day, making it such a full-time job that I was like, I'm not taking any medication. I just was so against pharmaceuticals. But for how sick I was, like I found balance, and there are some amazing pharmaceuticals out there that I think are definitely worth giving a go if you're moving through these kinds of really deep chronic illnesses, just to get the edge off. And it's not something you have to live on, it's just something that might create a bit of space in your system. And low dose naltrexone has like no side effects. Like it's actually in like the holistic world, people are obsessed with it because it does crazy things to the immune system where it just helps to modulate.
So how are you now? Where are you at now?
So I have improved so much, and a lot of it has come from like nervous system regulation tools and I've been working with a really amazing, what she called a psychotherapist. She has a program. I've actually never had one-on-ones with her. I've just done her program. And that's where I've received the most healing, along with I had a coach as well. Her name is Amy Southon, and she works with people with mold illness. I think she has a program as well. I don't think she's taking one-on-ones, but she has a really, really cheap, affordable program that you can do to understand the basics of with mold illness and breast implant illness, or really any kind of illness, the right order in order to detox the body. And then she's the one that recommended me to Nadia, who's the psychotherapist who deals with the nervous system side of things and getting the body calm enough to turn off these like big reactions like mast cell activation syndrome or POTS, like people that got the COVID vaccine that started having like the crazy heart thing. I think it's called POTS, where they can't stand up with their heart just taking off. A lot of the people that deal with my kind of illness as well, they have that along with mast cell activation and all the things. And so working with her, I've really been able to like let go of all detox, like protocols. Like I don't don't do enemas anymore. I don't even get in the sauna. I literally just live my life now. I'm never thinking in my mind, oh shit, I better do that in order to heal. And that all just comes from mindfulness. And like a major part of that has been parts work, which has been super healing. It's like another system. Of course, I love systems, but this system, it like resources you with yourself rather than resourcing you with something that's outside of yourself, like the planets, for example. With parts work, you're hearing what voice is talking to you because it's based off, I don't know too much about, yeah, where it comes from to talk into that, but it's based off like this doctor that I think he was a psychologist, maybe, or yeah, something like that. And he was noticing how families work together. And he was curious to know if you can counsel a family, do we all have our own internal family within us? Like we've got, I've got my worried part, my protective part, my firefighter part, my manager. Like there are all these parts of us that flare up at different times. And when you can hear the voice, and like for me, that little girl that's quiet, that sits back and wants to please, to be that good girl, when I hear that she's there, I love her and I nurture her and I'm like, "You're safe. Like you don't need to be quiet right now. You have a voice and it's safe to speak up." And so, yeah, it's just about finding those inner parts of us and yeah.
A lot of inner child work, hey?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm finding that when I work with my psychologist, or even recently I went and got bond therapy, and so much of it comes back to inner child work, which is beautiful. So for those listening who aren't really aware, like let's say they have breast implants, what are some things that you've become aware of that you would say to just be mindful of, and I guess not let it go unnoticed if they are sick in any way, but have forgotten about the breast implants, and perhaps they could be to blame.
I think everyone that has breast implants, I think should definitely get an ultrasound like every 2 years, just to make sure that there isn't a rupture, because the faster you get onto that, the less chance, like, say there is a rupture, it might be quite contained, it might not have too much like, spillover, and so, yeah, there's no harm in just getting that clarity. And the faster you get onto it, then the sooner you can like get that fixed up. And then the next step is like really finding the right surgeon because not every surgeon is good. And there's a whole bunch of questions. I would recommend joining the breast implant illness Facebook groups and asking the girls in there all the questions because they have been the people that guided me the most. And they all like have the best facts on it. And no one comes in there with questions. No one goes like slips through the cracks. And yeah, there's just a lot of support.
Now the same thing with mold. So because I recently reached out to you because I
Yeah.
kept having this intuitive feeling that we just keep getting these sinus issues, sinus infections. And to begin with, I thought it was the helicopters because we have helicopters that fly over our house, spraying a mosquito killing pesticide, I think if you would call it, or let's just say a chemical, and they fly all the time. The city of Mantra pays a lot of money to have the mosquitoes, quote unquote, under control from the estuary. And I live right on the estuary, so they spray constantly. And I used to walk outside and see them and see the helicopter, and the following day, Ziggy would always be the first to present these like congestion in her sinuses, in her nose, and a sore throat. And then I would follow. And I didn't start connecting it till it had been months of seeing these helicopters. And it got to the point I actually had to just be like, I need to stop focusing on it. Like I need to stop giving it my attention with my mind. Anyway, I just kept having this feeling like something out in our environment, something in our environment is making us sick. Like I don't think it's our food. Like we eat a very, very clean diet. Like considering, most kids in society, like, that are being raised on cereal and processed foods, it doesn't make sense how much she started to get sick. And so I then started to look into mold, and I had no idea at this point that both of our showers were leaking slowly into our external walls. And anyway, long story short is months went by, and recently our car broke down. And when our car broke down, I was forced to stay at home for 5 weeks. And within the second or third week, I was, I don't know how it came up, but ended up I think I told a friend I suspect there's mold in the house, and she was like, "Just call RAC, like your building insurance." And I called them, and they said they would call someone out instantly. And the lady that I spoke to, she was like, "You got kids in the house." She went full like hazmat, full, we got to protect you guys. Anyway, they came out. There was all moisture in the walls. Turns out both of our showers had been leaking for God knows how long. And even our rainwater tank for at least the past 6 months to a year had slowly been leaking water because you hear the pump turn on. And it means that the rainwater tank pump is pumping the water from the rainwater tank into our house. And the pump would come on and we would hear it come on every half an hour, but there was no water on in the house. We weren't using the water. And this is going all night. And this is going on for as long as we can remember, at least a year. So there had been water trickling into the walls of our house. Anyway, when the bloke came out from that the ROC sent out and he put the moisture reading into the walls, he was like, "This is the highest it can be. Like these walls are peeling off. You could put your finger in the wall." And it was in spots that you didn't look like. Behind me, I'm in my off, like in my spare room right now. Behind me is the spare room's walk-in wardrobe. So in there is connected to the shower behind it. When you open that door, and that wall was drenched. And in our walk-in wardrobe, I have all these shelves with all my shoes on it, and it was behind that wall. So it was walls that you couldn't see, and you kind of had to feel for the moisture. So he then was like, "You have so much water in your walls. Like, this is insane." So builders had to come out, plumbers had to come out. And meanwhile, I've then reached out to you, and then you gave me heaps of insight into mold. So one thing I tried to do instantly was not buy into the fear of it. But can you please help me understand more how we can help protect our body and the difference between mold illness and mold allergy? Yeah. Can you go over
Yeah.
that, please?
So what I think you guys are experiencing is the mold allergy side of it, which if you had to pick one, like it's better having a mold allergy. It's like, yeah, a better situation. And yeah, so mold illness, the difference is you feel like drunk all the time or like high and out of your mind. And like, I don't know if you've ever had dissociative type of anxiety, but that's mold illness. If you're like dizzy and you don't feel like you're a part of reality and you don't even know if you're human, that's mold illness. And so, yeah, I would say that's the two different. And you're dizzy all the time with mold illness. Like it's just the most, yeah, you feel like you're bloody psychotic. And I'm just I try and be such a, what I value the most is trying to be super grounded and like on the planet. And so when you're going through mold illness, it's just the complete opposite experience where you're just like, you feel like you're losing your mind. And like for me, yeah, I had like crawling skin all the time. And like I honestly just probably looked like a drug addict. I definitely sounded like one. And even when I went to the hospital, they just did not believe me. I'm sure they thought that I was on something. And anyone that I speak to that's been affected by mold in the illness way, it's just, yeah, we all have the same story and the same symptoms, and no one understands us, like, but we understand each other because it's such a very unique and specific feeling that when you're mold sick like that, it's very specific symptoms. So, like, when I speak to you about your journey, it's like it probably takes a lot to get mold sickness. Like you would have to have other things going on as well. Like with me, I also had COVID twice, and that it really, COVID was just really rough on my body. And along with living in mold and the implant stuff, I had so much going on for my immune system to try and keep up that, of course, it got to my neurology. And so, yeah, like I think people can recover really well from the mold allergy side of things. Like as soon as you guys just get through remediation, you just, yeah, symptoms are just going to go away and it's going to be fine. But there's a lot you can do. Like there's a lot of binders that you can use, and there's different binders for different mold species. So if someone's affected by mold, it's really great to be able to get an inspector in, and not all inspectors are the same. Like I had 3 inspectors before I found Lee, who was really great. And he was able to help me understand that there's different mold species and they have different outcomes on the body because they have like different gases and different mycotoxin effects. antibiotics. And so then once you get those results, then you go to a naturopath that can test for mold in the body. Like there's a test that Mosaic offers, which most Australian naturopaths would have access to. And then you'll be able to test what mycotoxins, which is the toxin that is produced by the mold species, you'll be able to find what that species is in your body and match it up, because sometimes someone might be mold sick and they might not actually be living in a moldy house, or they might have a mold in their body that doesn't match the mold in their house, but maybe that's because it's colonized from an old environment like a workplace or a previous house. And so, yeah, when you know what specific mold strains you have in your body, then there's actually specific binders for those specific species of mycotoxins. And so a really great binder, like all-rounder one, is it's really great to bind in the gut, because your whole body moves everything to your gut eventually at some point anyway. So using something like GI detox is really great because it'll mop up what's in there and pull it out through your stool. And yeah, you're just not recirculating those mycotoxins. So slowly over time, you get better and better because they're not being reabsorbed. Whereas like it all goes to the liver and then gets recirculated if it's not being binded out of your body. So that really helped me. Another thing that really helped me was zeolite. Again, not all zeolites are the same. Like some are manufactured terribly and still have like aluminium in them. So the brand that I trust the most at the moment is Zeocharge. It's in America, but yeah, I think it might be like $100 for a tub, and the scoop in it is huge. So you're getting a really decent serving size, and that's helped me a lot because a lot of my stuff is like I get really hot, like burning face or burning scalp, or a lot of those types of reactions. And so, especially with my cycle, like if I'm ovulating or about to get my period, all of my symptoms flare. And so, if I take a lot of zeolite around that time, it really brings symptoms down. So, once you do that, like without the nervous system work, it's hard to heal. You'll just keep cycling because the body needs to be in a calm state, like rest and digest, right, in order to heal. Whereas if you're in fight, flight, and you're like scared of the mold in your house and what it's doing, you're just in this cycle where the body's constricted and holding and can't release. And so you need to be able to get into a state. It's so much harder, like to do this, but it's like don't fear the mold. It's like, just don't aggravate it. Like when I fogged my house, that's the worst thing I could have possibly done because it's a living species, right? And of course, it's going to have a, what's it called? Like a defense mechanism, which is to release the mycotoxins, which is the gas that it releases in order to protect it from other colonies of mold that are going to try and overtake its like territory. And so that's its purpose in having the mycotoxin. And so when I had my mold person go in and fog it, it's like, oh shit, we're under attack, and released its gas. And so that's why people say don't try and kill the mold, just remove it. Like bathroom mold and stuff like that, it's different. It's so fine. Just wipe it off, like with some vinegar. Try not to spray it, like try and wipe directly over it so you're actually removing it without it getting a chance to release the gas. But if it's something big that you can't just wipe it off like that, like, being all over a wall, then yeah, it's going to be a threat to your health. And so that situation, just don't aggravate it. Just let it be, let it go dormant, dry out the wall. And until you get into a place where you can actually deal with the situation, try and just, yeah, so hard, but try and just like avoid thinking about it, and things will calm down, and then you'll be able to deal with it when you're in a better financial position. Because yeah, it's like mold is not something that you just find it and then you get rid of it, because we're not all made of money that's just possible. But there are things that you can do to support your health, to bring your nervous system down so your body can get into a state where it can naturally detox, your immunity can stay up, you can bind it out at the same time. And there's just supportive things. Getting out in sunlight, like I know we don't have that much of it at the moment because it's winter, but like even getting sun on your body kills, yeah, mycotoxins. And there is like a lot of things going into the fight, and like doing what I did and spending like over 200 grand trying to save yourself was probably the worst thing I did for my health, to be honest, because I'm just sending the message to my body that I'm not safe and that I'm not okay. And that's just, the nervous system is where the healing is. So
Wow.
yeah, that's where I recommend Nadia's program because I think she even said like a couple of months ago, she just got affected by mold again. And she was like, I think she was so sick. Like she had so many different autoimmune conditions and she overcame all of them. She lives a full normal life now. I think she might enjoy a random drink from time to time and might eat the random bit of gluten still. So to me, like I'm like, that's amazing. Like if I could have a glass of wine or something one day, that would be so great. So just getting back to living a normal life without having to think about all this health related stuff is a goal. And doing so much better. Like, yeah, I practically do have my whole life back. I'm not paralyzed anymore. I get those situations. My body is like it's called my superpower. Like it'll communicate with me if I'm pushing the boundaries on something. And so I honor it now, whereas I used to shut it down and just smash the coffee and push past the boundaries of what my body was able to. And so, yeah, it's been great because I've really had to speak up now and say no and push back on what doesn't serve me.
How do we know when something is helping us grow versus when we're giving our power away?
I think that depends on what energy you're using. So for me, I was getting deeper and deeper into this fear cycle. And so that's how I started to understand that this was like it was parts of me that were like coming up to protect and feeling threatened. And so it was no longer serving me. And I was like, what is that? What am I trying to protect myself from? And so it was the world, the whole world I was trying to protect myself from. Everything felt dangerous. So that's where I really had to learn like what was me? Like what was my identity without astrology and human design and all of these systems that I was using in order to keep me safe. And that's when connecting back to my body and finding like more somatic tools and body-based exercises and really like I was very conscious in the head. Like my conscious if I think about consciousness, like I'm very analytical type of person. I love to think things through, like I love to have deep conversations. But I was like completely shut off from my body and my feelings. And I was just like talking about my feelings, but not feeling my feelings. And like trying to psychoanalyze the transits that were coming up because of the fear that I was feeling in my body. And so I wasn't coming into my body and saying, okay, what are these feelings? Let's sit with them. Let's nurture that. What's that voice that's coming through? Why is she scared? Instead, I was like, oh my God, the chart says this. Holy shit, that's gonna keep happening for the next 3 days. Oh no, like there's this whole part with this type of illness that has been so healing, and I honestly am so grateful for every part of this journey now, because understanding the neuroscience of how like neural pathways work when you go through chronic illnesses, like of course we build like fear through like connecting more dots of and looking for more evidence of why something is fearful. And then that's like that neural pathway is like we're building and strengthening that like a muscle, right? And practicing, like it's like I was practicing fear as a muscle and flexing it. And so I needed to start working the other way and unwinding that. And yeah, I that's where like God was really important for me in that, where that might not be someone else's journey. Like I'm definitely not here in this episode to preach at people. It just God was an amazing tool for me because when I get into fear, I just go inside myself into my feeling and I find God, and he says everything else outside there is just noise. And when I hear that, I'm in my body and I'm not outsourcing it to a system or winding myself up in some other spiritual modality. It's like I'm literally just inside myself with the creator. And like, you know, it's like we're always like, well, I listen to the universe for the messages, but like, what is the universe? That's a creation. Like, what about the creator? We all just forget about the creator. And so, yeah, I think that there's like a growing awareness in this part of spirituality where, like, Christianity, not that this journey I'm on is super about Christianity, but I think people mock Christianity, but they don't mock other religions. Like they don't mock Hinduism or they don't mock the deities and the gods within astrology. But for some reason, like Christianity is mocked. But there is so much power in it, and like just out of people's curiosity, if you're going to read something like the Kabbalah, why not also research the Bible just for your own inner thing? Not to go to church and like get involved with the happy clap side of religion, but just to empower yourself with knowledge of another, yeah, something. And I just think that connecting with God has just been such a healing part of coming back into my body and being governed by something that is so peaceful. Whereas in astrology and these other systems, they do really have a fearful side to them.
If you could offer one piece of wisdom to someone deep in the storm of chronic illness, what would it be?
Let go of all of the tools that you think are trying healing you, and sit with something like brain retraining, or listen to someone like the podcast The Chronic Comeback. That was probably a really great place for me to realize that I didn't need all the things that I was doing, because in that podcast I listened to hundreds of stories of people saying how none of that worked for them. And by hearing that, I was like, well, I just need to come to something more like brain retraining, uh, and like somatic based exercises. And yeah, realizing that it's all just like neural pathways in your brain and like what is creating more fear for you. So I think that would be the biggest thing takeaway from all of my journey.
Well, thank you, Courtney, so much for coming on and sharing your journey. Where can people find you?
So I actually have just tried to revamp my page a little bit, because it used to be very astrology based. And then I just came into like learning how to be myself without all of that. And so now I'm actually working on catering for retreats or different catering projects. And that's kind of what I've replaced my passion of astrology with now, with cooking. So you can find me at Eat, Pray, Courtney. It was like a fun little name to come up with on Instagram. And if anyone has any events or anything that they would like some yum things for, hit me up. I would love to do some cooking or anything like that. So yeah, or any advice around any of these things that we've talked about also, like I'm here for all of that also.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I've loved chatting about all these things with you.